Welcome to part 2 of my Italy series, where I visit the coastal area of southern Italy. This is the Amalfi Coast. After a 3.5-hour train ride from Rome to Salerno, we packed onto a bus going to Minori. With the Mediterranean on the left and steep slopes on the right, the bus took us down a winding coastal road, which had lemon terraces lining both sides of it. We eventually reached the quaint coastal town of Minori, which was seated on Italy's signature seaside slopes. Wandering through the beautiful side streets, I made it to the sea, where I discovered a runoff outlet, which I entered.
Oh, it smells so bad in here. Let's get out of here.
Afterwards, I climbed up the town's numerous stairs to get a good vantage point. After somewhat accomplishing my objective, I decided to head back into town, where I discovered a Roman ruin. Although there was more to see, I decided to not venture further for fear of being kicked out by the security. As darkness fell, the hills were lit up by the warm glow of houses scattered along the hillside. The next day, we attempted to catch a bus to the town of Amalfi, but waited for 2 hours as every single bus was packed to the door. During those 2 hours watching traffic go by, I became fully versed in identifying Fiats, the main car brand in Italy. Tired of inhaling the diesel gas, we decided to climb over to the hilltop town of Ravello. We hiked up and around the narrow alleys and countless steps. Along the way, we saw the various flora, lemon terraces, and even an opera house. At the top, we passed through a tunnel to a medieval church site. There were numerous cats about and a decent amount of bustle. We then descended down the narrow, winding roads. Despite the cool cliffside caves and interesting sights, we had to pay attention to the constant stream of traffic. A pedestrian tunnel finally relieved us of the busy road. Coming out of the tunnel, we made it to Amalfi, a much larger town than Minori. Going down to the beach, I dipped my toes in the cold water and then headed back. The next morning, we were headed for the Isle of Capri. After a pleasant wait by the bright blue water, a boat picked us up. From the boat, there was a much wider view of the shoreline, revealing the beauty of the Amalfi Coast. Vibrantly colored houses lining the steep coastal slopes reached places that made you wonder how they got materials there. Caves were spread high and low, looming over towns or touching the sea. There were relatively few boats in the water, but one tourist boat decided to race us. While the scenery was beautiful, the scene on the ship was just disgusting. Almost everyone was seasick, with the entire bottom deck reeking of vomit. The top deck thankfully had enough fresh air to wash the scent away. Soon the Isle of Capri, with its towering cliffs, was in sight. In the distance, Mount Vesuvius could be seen looming over Naples. We made a huge circle around the natural arch and headed to the harbor. Bustling with tourists and traffic, Capri's town was full of life and business. Everything screamed the ideal tourist location, from the flamboyant taxis cruising along, boats lazily bobbing in the harbor, and everything being massively upcharged. With this environment, the wait for the bus was much more pleasant than the one in Minori. Like most buses in Italy, the bus driver drove incredibly fast up the mountain. Once off the bus, I discovered Europe's evil system of paying for bathrooms, which I refused to pay for the rest of the trip. Then took a lawn chair lift up to the peak of the island. At the top, I peered down the insanely steep cliffs which dropped several hundred feet. I could also see boats going to the natural arches. During the slow return journey, I had an excellent view of Capri's town and the ocean beyond. The bus ride down, however, was very fast and even more jerky than the one up. Afterwards, we left Capri and were back in Minori's harbor by sundown. The next day, we went to Pompeii, which I won't cover in this video since it doesn't match the theme. In short, for those who don't want to watch the other video, Pompeii was larger than expected with some cool murals, but exploration was restricted and most of the artifacts were removed. Returning from Pompeii, I explored the town for the last time, meandering down the dimly lit alleys and seeing the nightlife. The next day, we left Minori for Salerno. but we were held up by a van that got stuck on the narrow corner of the road. As I took one last look at the Amalfi Coast, I reflected on our brief time there. As the second stop, it met my expectations of what Italy was like, from the quaint town life to the pleasant vistas. However, I still had much more to see as we boarded the Italian bullet train and headed to Lake Garda, the largest lake in Italy.